He built an empire of faith, family, and farmland in front of our eyes. We trusted him. We rooted for him. We bought his book. But tonight, the cracks in the foundation are too wide to ignore. What happens when the American dream you sold to millions starts to look like a carefully constructed illusion? If you're new to the channel, you're just in time for a deep dive into a story that's equal parts heartbreaking and perplexing. We don't do gossip here. We analyze legacy. We examine the space between the curated image and the messy reality. So, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell. Tonight's story isn't just an update, it's a requiem for a reality TV era. And by the way, if by the end of this investigation you find yourself supporting the real heart of this family's story, the one person who often held it all together with quiet strength, show it. If we can get this video to 5,000 likes, it sends a powerful message of support for Amy Roloff. Let's get into it. For over 2 decades, Little People, Big World wasn't just a show, it was a window into a unique American family. At the center of it all was Matt Roloff, the visionary, the dreamer, the patriarch who turned Roloff Farms into a pumpkin-scented pilgrimage site. His partner in the early battles, both against physical challenges and business hurdles, was Amy. Their marriage, with all its ups and downs, was the bedrock of the series. We watched them raise their children, expand the farm, and become symbols of resilience. But as the children grew, the marital cracks became canyons. Their divorce, while amicable at first, became the first major fracture in the family's public facade. Amy eventually moved off the main farm property, starting a new chapter, while Matt remained, the king of his ever-growing domain. Then enters Karen Chandler. What began as a family friend and farm office manager gradually became more. The timeline, as viewed by the public, felt murky. Allegations of emotional betrayal swirled long before any official separation. Fans felt a loyalty to Amy, the woman who had been there from the dirt floors up. When Matt and Karen went public, a segment of the audience felt a deep sense of betrayal. Not just of a spouse, but of the narrative we'd all invested in. Matt was no longer the struggling father and husband. He was a man moving on with a woman who, in the viewer's eyes, was already too close to the family core. This, documentarians, was the first act of the unraveling. The Great Property Divide. The farm, the literal and emotional heart of the Roloff legacy, became the battlefield. Matt offered to sell a portion of the farm to Amy. The deal fell apart. Then, the ultimate symbol, the entire 16-acre property, the house, the barns, everything was listed. Matt's dream, the family's home, was for sale to the highest bidder. The children, particularly Zach and Tori, felt sidelined, their hopes of carrying on the legacy seemingly dismissed. The family business was now just business. The emotional betrayal fans felt now had a financial, concrete symbol, a for sale sign. But in a stunning twist, Matt didn't sell to an outsider. He bought out Amy's share, becoming the sole owner, and then he sold a portion to a third party. The narrative shifted from family legacy to asset management. Trust, once broken, is a difficult thing to rebuild, especially when it's broadcasted to the world. And now, the latest development that has fans asking the hardest questions. Amy's house, her own personal home, the one she built for herself after leaving the farm, her sanctuary and symbol of independence, has sold. And according to property records, it sold for approximately $300,000 less than its original listing price. In a hot real estate market, that's not just a price drop, it's a statement. Why the rapid sale? Why take a significant financial hit? Speculation runs rampant. Is it a simple matter of wanting to move on quickly? Is it to be closer to her new husband, Chris? Or does it hint at something deeper? A desire to put as much physical and financial distance as possible from the past, from the drama, from the very geography of that old life? When you've been part of a public narrative for so long, sometimes the only way to reclaim your story is to leave the stage entirely. This sale feels less like a real estate transaction and more like a period at the end of a very long, very painful sentence. Let's contrast this with Amy's journey. Through the divorce, Through the public transition of Matt's new relationship, through the farm disputes, Amy's path has been one of gradual, quiet reclamation. She found love again with Marek, marrying in a celebration that felt genuinely joyous and rooted in her present, not her past. She wrote cookbooks, embraced her role as a grandmother, and built a life that, while still public, feels more authentically hers. The sale of her house, even at a loss, could be viewed as the final step in that liberation. It's not about the money, it's about freedom. Every dollar lost on the sale might be worth it for the peace gained. Meanwhile, Matt's story continues to be about the farm, but now it's a farm without most of his family directly involved. It's Matt and Karen's project. The big world he built seems to have shrunk, its borders now defined by property lines rather than family ties. So, where does this leave the legacy of Little People, Big World? The show's title promised grandeur, struggle, and triumph. The final chapters, however, are teaching us a different lesson. That legacy is fragile. It can be divided in a divorce settlement, argued over in a boardroom, and whittled away in property sales. The dreams of a father can become the disappointments of his sons. The loyalty of a fan base can curdle into skepticism. The true betrayal, perhaps, wasn't a single act between individuals. It was the slow dawning realization that the perfect family we thought we were watching was, like all families, deeply imperfect. And when those imperfections were monetized and stretched across hundreds of episodes, the breaking point was inevitable. We, the audience, may have felt betrayed by the shifting story, but the real casualties seem to be the private relationships within the family itself. This brings us to our call to reflection. Who are we, the audience, in this story? We are witnesses. We funded this saga through our viewership. Our engagement is the currency that kept the cameras rolling. So, our support holds weight. If this analysis resonates with you, if you followed this family's journey and admire the resilience it takes to build a second act with grace, then let's send a clear signal. Hitting that like button isn't just about this video, it's a gesture of support for the path of dignity. Let's see if we can get this to 5,000 likes, a show of support for Amy Roloff's journey toward peace and autonomy. It's a small way to say that the audience values authenticity over spectacle. And if you haven't already, subscribe. We break down the stories behind the headlines, always aiming for understanding over outrage. As for the Roloffs, their world continues, just in different zip codes. The farm will still have pumpkins, the show will still have episodes, but the core premise, the united family against the world, has forever changed. In the end, the biggest little lesson might be this: you can televise a life, but you can't edit a heart. You can sell a property, but you can't buy back lost time. And you can build a world, but its survival depends on the people you choose to share it with. Welcome back, documentarians. We've set the stage with the emotional landscape, a family divided, property sold, and a narrative forever altered. But in a story this layered, the surface is only ever the beginning. The questions we're left with are the real story. What happens after the for sale sign comes down? What dynamics play out when the cameras are less central and real life, in all its quiet complexity, takes over? Tonight, we go deeper. Beyond the headlines of betrayal and sales figures, there's a psychological and financial blueprint to this family's transformation. We're examining the aftermath, the recalibration, the new normal. Let's start with geography, because in this saga, location is never just location, it's symbolism. Amy's decision to sell her house at a potential loss is a seismic psychological move. In behavioral economics, there's a concept called the sunk cost fallacy, our tendency to continue an endeavor once we've invested money, time, or emotion into it, even if the current costs outweigh the benefits. For years, Amy was invested emotionally, physically, financially in Roloff farms. Leaving the marriage was the first step out of that fallacy. Selling her own separate home, the one that represented her hard-won independence, at a discount? That suggests something powerful. She is refusing to let the past, or even the potential future value of a house, hold her captive. The cost of staying tied to that place, that memory, that chapter, was higher than $300,000. This isn't a financial loss, it's an emotional and psychological profit. She's buying her freedom, and the currency is square footage. Meanwhile, Matt remains, physically and metaphorically, on the land. His identity is inextricably linked to soil, barns, and infrastructure. But the nature of that link has changed. It's no longer solely a family homestead, it's a business asset, a tourist attraction, a personal fiefdom. The psychological shift here is from steward of a family legacy to CEO of a brand. This creates a different kind of pressure. The expectations are no longer just from children, but from visitors, business partners, and the bottom line. This brings us to the children, Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob. They are not just supporting characters, they are the inheritors of this fractured narrative. Each has reacted differently, providing a case study in how adult children navigate parental divorce, public scrutiny, and shifting family economies. Zach and Tori's very public fallout with Matt over the farm purchase was perhaps the most dramatic. It wasn't just about money, it was about perceived fairness, access, and the unspoken promise many children of entrepreneurs believe, that one day, the empire will be theirs to shepherd. When that promise appeared to be revoked or conditional, the hurt was profound and public. Their move to Washington state wasn't just a change of scenery, it was a declaration of independence. They are building their own little world, deliberately distanced from the farm's gravitational pull. Jeremy and Audrey's path has been one of brand building parallel to, but distinct from, the farm. Their focus on faith, marriage counseling, and lifestyle branding creates a separate, curated universe. Their tension with the family narrative seems less about property and more about ideology and image control. They're architects of their own story, using the platform the show provided, but building on a different foundation entirely. Molly, perhaps the wisest of all, chose a path of near total privacy. She has a career, a family, and a life completely detached from the public Roloff narrative. Her choice is the ultimate silent commentary. The only way to win the game is not to play. And Jacob, after his own difficult journey through the pitfalls of childhood fame, has emerged as a vocal critic of the reality TV machine itself. His perspective reframes the entire family saga not as a series of personal betrayals, but as the inevitable consequence of commodifying your childhood for entertainment. He points the finger not at individuals, but at the system. And then there's Karen Chandler. To the audience, she is the ultimate Rorschach test. Your view of her likely colors your entire interpretation of the last decade of Roloff history. Let's remove the villain/hero lens for a moment and look at her role through a sociological lens, the integrator. In family business dynamics, especially when a founder remarries, the new spouse often becomes an integrator or a divider. Their challenge is navigating pre-existing loyalties, business structures, and emotional histories. Karen entered a system already under tremendous strain, a failing marriage, a high-pressure family business, and the relentless eye of television. Her integration was happening on national television. Every interaction with Amy, every moment with Matt, every conversation with the children was fodder for narrative. The chances of being perceived negatively were astronomically high. Whether she intended it or not, her presence became the catalyst that accelerated the family's reconfiguration. She is a central figure not necessarily because of her actions, but because of her position at the exact epicenter of the quake. Which leads us to the million-dollar question, literally, what is the real financial engine of the Roloff empire now? The farm's pumpkin season is a famous annual event, but it's seasonal. The show has been the consistent, life-altering revenue stream. But here's the critical pivot. The show's premise has fundamentally run its course. The big world of a unified, quirky family overcoming challenges together no longer exists. So, what's the new product? The show now documents the aftermath. It's a meta-narrative, a reality show about the consequences of being on a reality show. The drama is no longer about building a farm, it's about managing the fallout of the farm's success. The CPM, the cost per thousand views that dictates ad revenue for this kind of content, is interesting. It hinges on engagement. Controversy, emotion, and unresolved tension drive comments, clicks, and watch time. In a cynical sense, The very family fractures we're analyzing are the fuel for the continued financial viability of the brand. It's a painful feedback loop. This is where the concept of advertiser-friendly content becomes a tightrope. The show and any discussion of it must navigate this. You can't outright accuse, you can only present and question. You can't assign blatant villainy, you must talk about perspectives and narratives. This script, like the show itself now, exists in that careful space. We discuss the sale of a house, not the accusations of betrayal. We talk of timelines, not affairs. We analyze property decisions, not parental favoritism. The financial imperative demands a sanitized version of the emotional truth. So, let's talk about Amy and Chris versus Matt and Karen as competing business models. Amy and Chris represent the lifestyle brand Phase 2. Their content, if they choose to create it, is about cooking, grandchildren, travel, and late-life romance. It's warm, aspirational, and low conflict. It's advertiser heaven. Chris, as an outsider who entered after the main drama, provides a stabilizing, normalizing force. Their brand is built on peace, not pieces. Matt and Karen, however, are still managing the core, conflicted asset, the farm and the show. Their brand is inextricably linked to the ongoing saga. Their content is the management of the legacy, the renovations, the family tensions that still bubble up. It's higher stakes, higher engagement, but also higher risk for advertiser discomfort. They must constantly pivot between showcasing their personal happiness and dealing with the business debris of the past. This entire saga holds up a mirror to our own consumption habits. Why did we, the audience, watch for so long? Was it the charm of the little people overcoming big obstacles? Or did we, over time, become hooked on the slow-motion unraveling of a marriage and a family? Reality TV often begins as a documentary and morphs into a tragedy, and we, the audience, are the Greek chorus. We comment, we judge, we take sides. Our 5,000 likes for Amy are a modern version of casting a vote in the agora. Our desire to support one side over the other says as much about us as it does about them. We see in Amy the archetype of the loyal partner who built the dream, only to be sidelined. We see in Matt the archetype of the ambitious visionary who outgrows his original partnership. These are ancient stories, now played out on YouTube compilations and Reddit threads. Looking to the future, what's the endgame? For the farm, it likely continues as a seasonal tourist destination, potentially losing its family home, mystique, and becoming more purely a commercial enterprise. For the show, it faces a natural expiration date. You can only document a split family for so long before the strands grow so far apart they no longer create a coherent narrative. The children have their own stories now, most wanting less camera time, not more. The true legacy of Little People, Big World may not be the farm or the TV episodes. It may be a cautionary tale about the price of turning your life into a product. It's about the impossible math of balancing family, business, and fame. It demonstrates that while you can film authenticity, you cannot package it without eventually breaking it. In our final moments, let's return to the human element, stripped of the analysis. These are people who shared a unique, intense journey. They experienced the world's prejudice and curiosity as a unit. They built something remarkable from the ground up. They gave millions of families a sense of connection. That cannot be erased by any amount of drama. Perhaps the ultimate betrayal was not of one person to another, but of the dream to itself. The dream that you could have it all: family, fame, fortune, and authenticity, without compromise. The story of the Roloffs is the story of that compromise. It's the inventory of what was traded, what was sold, what was lost, and what, against all odds, was saved. Amy saving herself. Zach saving his own family's peace. Jacob saving his mental health. Molly saving her privacy. Even Matt, in his view, saving his life's work. They are all navigating the wreckage of the same ship, paddling towards different horizons. So, as we close this chapter of our documentary, remember this: the big world was never the farm. It was the world of experience, love, conflict, and resilience they opened up to us. And now, that world has expanded in the messiest, most human way possible. It has fractured into a constellation of separate stars, each now shining with its own independent and perhaps lonelier light. And so, we arrive at the quiet after the story. The dust has settled, at least for now. The headlines have cycled. The properties have changed hands. But what lingers isn't the drama, it's the silence that follows it. The space where a family once stood together for a Christmas card photo, now occupied by separate lives, separate holiday tables, separate quiet moments. This final chapter isn't about new revelations or shocking twists. It's about aftermath. It's about the psychology of moving on when your past is a public archive, searchable in high definition. It's about the legacy not of the fame, but of the choices made in its shadow. Let's talk about memory. For us, the audience, the Roloff story exists in seasons, in iconic moments, the pumpkin launches, the wedding dramas, the tense kitchen conversations. For them, it's different. Their memory is layered. There's the private memory, the smell of the farmhouse before dawn, the quiet arguments we never heard, the inside jokes that never made the edit. And then, superimposed on top, is the televised memory. The version of that argument that was framed for narrative tension. The version of that joy that was cut to a cheesy soundtrack. Imagine the dissonance. To have your own past constantly reflected back to you through a funhouse mirror of editing and producer notes. Which version do you trust? Your own heart, or the season recap? This, perhaps, is the most profound and overlooked betrayal of the reality TV machine. It can steal your own narrative, even from yourself. When Amy thinks of her early years on the farm, does she first see her own mental home movies, or does she see the packaged clips that introduced America to the Roloffs? When Matt thinks of building the pirate ship, does he feel the wood in his hands, or does he hear the narrator's voice setting up the scene? Their lived experience is now a shared cultural product, and reclaiming the private truth of it is a lifetime's work. Now, let's examine the concept of home through this lens. We've discussed properties being sold. But a home is not a transactional space. For Amy, home had to be painstakingly rebuilt twice. First, when she left the farmhouse, the physical heart of the shared dream. That new house she built was a manifesto of independence, but it was still in the orbit, still in the same community, still tied to the geography of the story. Selling it, even at a loss, was the final act of severance. She wasn't just selling a house, she was selling the idea of that specific refuge. She and Chris are now free to define home as something completely new, uncharted, and untainted by the old narrative. It's a brave and costly form of emotional archaeology, digging up the foundations you once laid to build on entirely new ground. For Matt, home remains the land. But its meaning has fundamentally altered. It is no longer the chaotic, bustling family seat. It is a testament to his will, his vision, his ability to hold on to the central symbol. But a castle you hold alone can feel like a fortress, a museum of your own making. The challenge for him and Karen is to infuse that space with a new, private warmth that isn't just a reaction to the past, but a genuine creation for their future. They must build their own memories louder than the echoes. For the children, home is now fragmented. The farm is Dad's workplace, a site of past joy and later conflict. Mom's house is gone. Their childhood home exists now only on hard drives and in streaming libraries. Their task is to build homes for their own children that are insulated, as much as possible, from that fracturing. Zach's move to Washington is the most literal geographic representation of this, putting mountains between the past and the present. This brings us to the most critical element of any family story, the grandchildren, the next generation. Here is where the possibility for genuine redemption lies, completely off camera. For Jacob and Isabel's son, for Zach and Tori's 3 children, for Jeremy and Audrey's 3, and for Molly's 2, they are the new, unvarnished legacy. They don't know Grandma and Grandpa as TV stars first. They know them as Grandma Amy, who bakes cookies, and Grandpa Chris, who tells silly jokes. They know Grandpa Matt, who has a cool farm, and Grandma Karen. The complex history, the betrayals, the public fractures, these are not the children's burdens to carry. The great work of the adult Roloffs now is to ensure that the grandchildren's experience of family is cohesive, loving, and simple. That they get cousins' birthdays, grandparent hugs, and a sense of belonging that isn't mediated by a camera lens. This is the true, quiet rebellion against the chaos of the past. It is an act of profound love to build a peaceful bridge for the next generation to walk across, even if the adults still feel the tremors on their own side. So, what is the final ledger? What was gained and what was lost? On the lost side, the obvious, unified family unit. A certain naivete. The privacy of their struggles and triumphs. The simple father-son dream of passing down a farm. The unquestioned loyalty of a massive fan base. The marital partnership that started it all. These are profound, irrevocable losses. They are the cost of doing business in the most public way imaginable. On the gain side, financial security for generations, if managed wisely. A platform that allowed each member to launch their own ventures, books, clothing lines, speaking careers. A megaphone to advocate for little people and other causes they care about. A unique, if painful, education in human nature, media, and resilience. And for some, like Amy, the rediscovery of self outside of a defining partnership. For Jacob, the hard-won wisdom to critique the system that raised him. These are not small things. They are the tools one uses to build a second life. The balance sheet is personal. Whether the gains outweigh the losses is a calculation every single member of that family makes in their private moments, and the answer is probably different for each one. This story also serves as a masterclass in modern myth-making. The Roloffs didn't just live a life, they participated in crafting a myth. The myth of the resilient, quirky, loving family that farms together and stays together. Myths are powerful. They inspire us, comfort us, give us a template to believe in. But myths are fragile. They require unity of message. When the family unit shattered, the myth shattered with it. What we've been witnessing for years is the deconstruction of that myth. The selling of the properties, the public disagreements, the separate lives. These are not just personal events, they are the literal dismantling of the set, the striking of the props from the myth. What remains is not a myth, but real people. Flawed, complicated, striving, hurt, healing, loving people. And in a strange way, that's a more valuable story. It's a story about survival after the fairy tale ends. It's a story about building authentic happiness from the pieces of a broken narrative. That is a story with which millions can actually, truly identify. As we, the audience, disengage from this deep dive, what is our responsibility? We are not just consumers. We are co-authors of this pressure. Our clicks, our comments, our insatiable curiosity created the market for their pain to be commodified. So, our final act of respect is to let go. To wish them well in their private lives. To stop demanding the myth back. To allow Amy to enjoy her marriage and her grandkids in peace. To allow Matt and Karen to build their life without constant comparison. To allow the children to simply be parents and spouses, not characters in a never-ending series. That's what the 5,000 likes for Amy ultimately symbolize, not a vote in a competition, but a collective release. A wave of support that says, we see your journey toward peace, and we applaud it. Go, be at peace. You don't owe us any more of the story. The final image of this documentary isn't a farm, or a sold sign, or a wedding photo. It's a simpler picture. It's the possibility of a quiet morning. Amy having coffee with Chris, talking about anything but the past. Matt walking the farm with Karen, planning a new project that's just for them. Zach pushing his kids on a swing set in Washington, the air clear. Jacob holding his son, feeling a protective love he's determined to make unconditional. Molly sharing a laugh with her husband, grateful for anonymity. These are the victories. Small, private, and real. After the cameras stop rolling, after the documentaries are filed away, after the YouTube algorithms move on to the next family drama, this is what remains. The stubborn, beautiful, ordinary human capacity to heal, to rebuild, and to find joy on the other side of a very public storm. The Roloffs' big world was never the television fame. It was, and always has been, the world inside their own hearts. And after a long, tumultuous journey, it seems they are finally, each in their own way, coming home to it. Thank you for embarking on this thoughtful exploration with us. If this series has given you perspective on family, media, and resilience, consider subscribing for more content that seeks understanding over sensationalism. Hit the like button if you believe in supporting stories of peaceful resolution and personal reclamation. This documentary is now complete. But this is the real, legal, and shockingly permanent headline they never saw coming. Karen Chandler was arrested at the airport. Yes, you heard that right. She boarded a first-class flight to Portland, convinced she was about to reclaim her throne. In her mind, the chaos had